Good morning, members, and welcome to today's Insights Innovation webinar with our wonderful partners at Go Transit. I'd like to just briefly introduce Kiralee Hurst, who's the Director of Sales of Agency and Direct, who'll be taking us through this webinar. Thanks, Kiralee.
Thanks so much, Beck. And thank you everyone for jumping on today. I'm also joined by Bernard Haran, Joel Anderson and David Asimus from our Indie team. And then I will do some further introductions where we have Eric Fan, who's the CEO and co-founder of Lumos, will be presenting part of today. And then we're also very lucky to have Justin Kay, who is Director of Channel Partnerships at MasterCard. So thank you, Justin, for joining us. So I thought I'd just kick off with a very quick update on some new things at Go Transit. What we have been working through this year is certainly a year of growth and through both new assets and a change to our transit offering essentially. So there's been some exciting stuff for us. In particular, Skybus was a very exciting new asset that we launched this year. You can see on screen there now some of the campaigns that have just gone to market as launch clients and brands that wanted to align with the upcoming AFL Grand Final. So what we're actually seeing here is, clients and agency partners that are very excited to align with certain key events in Melbourne. So things that are coming up, we've got Spring Racing Carnival. Obviously that Christmas holiday period is traditionally busy through the Melbourne airport. Australian Open's a massive one, and then furthermore the Grand Prix in March. So we're really excited about this asset. It looks amazing, and I'm sure you would all agree that some of what we're seeing in terms of the creative content as well is really special. So that's an exciting one for us. Our Melbourne expansion then further to just Skybus is we've added some additional new markets and coverage into Melbourne. So you'll see on screen there now that footprint has really expanded. A couple of the new markets are Melton, Preston and Brunswick. Oakley was a newer one towards the end of last year. So certainly additional coverage, and it's really sort of pushing out for clients that want to obviously cover that greater Melbourne landscape. There's certainly plenty of dots on the map there that you've got some options through now. The other exciting part of that is the long-awaited move, which I can't really tell anyone much more on, which everyone's well aware has had some delays, but for us, we now have access for any of our clients and agency partners to share Move 1.5 files across that Melbourne space. So certainly reach out to the team if that's something that you've got a brief in market or looking for some Move 1.5 data to support a campaign. We can certainly provide that there for you guys. The next thing that's new for us is we've been working hard to establish our taxi network, which is something that we've been doing across the last couple of years, but we've been very excited to launch a new product being Taxi Tops. So the Gold Coast has been our first market with our long-standing client and big supporter of Go Transit being Chempro. So you will see these assets, they essentially sit on top of the taxis and they're on taxis that don't have any other advertising content on them. They are a static format, but they're backlit. So what we're really excited about is seeing these beauties at night. They're looking really good, a big standout piece and something that we're really excited about. So this was, as I mentioned, our first market. How we're working through our rollout is very much client-led. So the team will be obviously in touch with you as we start to sort of look at where we can put these out into additional markets. So next I'd like to introduce Eric Fan. Eric is the CEO and co-founder, as I mentioned, of Lumos, which many of you have. We've had a long-standing partnership with Lumos now, and many of you have been exposed to Eric before. So thank you, Eric. He's going to step through a recent case study we've done with Chempro.
Thanks, Kiralee. Good morning, everyone. It's great to reconnect. So really awesome opportunity for us to go through a couple of really interesting case studies today. One is around how do we prove impact from a media channel perspective, and also understanding how do we leverage those insights to continue to optimize and enhance campaigns going forward in order to deliver the positive business outcome for brands and advertisers. Also with me today, I've also brought along one of our valuable data partners, MasterCard. So Justin Kerr from Singapore is also with us today. So there are some really exciting data capabilities that we're able to demonstrate from an attribution standpoint, which we'd love to take you through. So once we step into the case study for footfall uplift, and I think this is also a good segue for us to jump straight into what's now available from a transaction data perspective. Thanks, Kelly. Maybe we'll jump straight into it. Cool. So I'll probably just cover the summary. So for the context of this campaign, we have leveraged 50 plus buses across Gold Coast, Queensland, and this is a campaign that has run for 6 months. Really awesome coverage with amazing creatives that's been demonstrated in market. And what's also available from the outcome of this campaign, as the client was really interested to know, is how are these amazing out-of-home campaigns driving store visitation to some of the flagships. And that was one of the key objectives from a campaign perspective, because the client, one, wants to build awareness in market to continue to build that top of funnel awareness. And also B, they do want to have a better understanding of campaign impact, not only just understanding the ROI, but also dive deep into the details of what kind of customers and consumers am I attracting from our messages and our offerings, and how do we leverage those insights to continuously to enhance and improve our go-to-market strategy? How do we have a more tailored and personalized offering based on what we're seeing in our store, and link it back to the next campaign strategy that they want to launch? So maybe we'll jump straight into the methodology as well. We'll probably take a step back to also explain how this was set up in the first place. Very fortunately, we've got access to all the incredible amount of data that we're able to collect from both the Taxi Top as well as the bus network, combining that with the strength of Lumos audience ecosystem of 22 million unified audience graph. That's sourced from 67 million smart devices. So we're able to track the movements, the intent, the transaction behaviors, and all the other geosocial behaviors about those demographics, link it back to the campaign play log data, which allows us to have a really deep understanding of how many people are being exposed to this amazing campaign in market. Then what we're able to do as well, just jumping to the next slide, is be able to geofence all the different store locations that we really want to understand impact. So from that perspective, we measured 14 depots and 89 different panels across the markets. There are 2 CamPro stores that the client has put forward to try to have a better understanding of the out-of-home impact that was able to deliver a better outcome. And during the campaign period, we analyzed over 14,000 trackable visitors that went to the 2 CamPro locations that's provided by the clients. This was also presented to the client and the CEO of CamPro. They're really pleased to see some of those results as well, and also further validated the methodology. So what is the final results here? During the campaign period, we're able to capture both exposed audiences and also have the ability to differentiate them from control. Control in this instance is anyone that haven't seen an ad in the market, but also have walked into CamPro at the same period. What we're trying to understand here, just from a validation perspective, is how many people saw the campaign, went into CamPro, versus how many people haven't seen the campaign and also went to the CamPro. What we're comparing here is essentially a benchmark process to understand the visitation rate of influenced by the campaign. Is campaign driving more visitation rate to CamPro store versus if nothing has been running in the market at all? And what we're able to see is correlated exposed audiences are seeing a 57% uplift in visitation rate. This was a really positive outcome, especially in this retail vertical. On average, the footfall uplift for retail is around 25% from out-of-home campaigns, and able to see 57% uplift also further demonstrates the strength of the creative, the format, and the way how it was executed and planned. From that perspective, we also want to deep dive into not just understanding, hey, we've got so many people coming to our stores, then what's next? we're able to dive into the details about those people that are actually walking into the Campro stores from the exposed engagement. And we want to further understand who they are, where they came from, and why they're here. So we're able to look into the profiles of those visitors and can see that there is a over-indexing segments within the pharmacy category. We are driving the right people to pharmacy. First of all, they already have the intention to visit pharmacy or are frequent visitors. So those are the key metrics that we're able to pull, first of all, to just establish the baseline. We are attracting the right people. And now let's find out who they are. So we're also able to see the demographic breakdown of the audiences by age, by gender. And in the later slides, we're also will touch on some of the other traits and behaviors of those audiences. So we not only need to know that they are pharmacy visitors, but we also want to know what else do they do outside of this environment. How do we then inform the different personalizations of creatives in order to tap into the parents that are buying products for their kids, or the retirees are buying products for themselves? We want to have a better understanding of the compositions of the audiences, and hence why this exercise has become far more valuable than just running an ROI activity. So now this is a really good segue to jump straight into the details of those insights. What was really fascinating, and also this was a really eye-opening conversation with the CEO and the clients, was really around, I want to know more about my consumers. Obviously, most of the brands and advertisers in market will have amazing CRM and first-party data set up to have a good understanding of what their customers are buying, and also how regular they do come back. But everyone are also really interested to understand what are those consumers doing outside of that walled garden. And this is the capability now we're able to bring to life from a campaign exposure to visitation perspective, have a better understanding of those audiences, life stages, and things they do outside of Campro, and also what is the path to purchase that led them to the purchase decision. So from the segment data, you can see from the top left of the presentation, obviously a lot of pharmacy visitors, which is a given. But also see there's a huge portion of audiences that over-index against working parents, restaurant visitors, DIY enthusiasts, from behavior data such as visiting Bunnings, Mitre 10s in the past 30 to 60 days. Also, there's tons of new home buyers, people that's also demonstrating behaviors, buying new furniture, set up the home, and also most of them own a car. And this is the data that we got from the Q Supercenter Campro Chemist, which is in a dedicated shopping center. It is a bit of a destination shopping location, which means people do need to drive there. This is a very interesting insight, because when we see the next slide, which is the Service Paradise store, we're seeing a completely different persona that's visiting those stores. And what this breakdown are able to also give us is what you can see from the bottom of the presentation, messaging opportunity. We don't only just want to reflect on what happened and how we went. We also want to take this opportunity to take a step further. We want to understand what are the insights that we took away from this campaign to then inform better messaging, better offering that's going to attract more audiences, especially the lookalikes. So this is the other store that we're also geofenced and we're tracking the conversions. This is the one that is based in Service Paradise. And as you can see, this is obviously a touristy spot. People are able to walk to the locations without having to drive a car. Hence why we're seeing a completely different persona altogether. So same brand in very similar market, but because of the locations and the characteristic of those stores, you can see that we're driving different engagements. So this is very interesting, because now we're seeing more traveler categories or people that's more into beauty products, healthcare visitors, compared to the one we saw before, which is more around people moving to a new house, going through upgrades and DIY enthusiasts. What this means from the business perspective, one is our campaigns were effective in driving store engagement, but B, how do I leverage this data to provide different offerings for different markets, and then also provide an end-to-end engagement proposition from the moment they saw the amazing transit ads all the way to driving those people in store and providing more personalized touch in the store engagement as well. Those are the things that what got brands and advertisers really interesting in this environment today, and they really want to hear more about the type of outcomes they're able to extract from campaigns like this. And the team has now put together some really attractive recommendations on the messaging opportunity for the Service Paradise campaign, as you can see in the below. we pretty much want to make sure that we understand who are locals, who are visitors, in order to provide the right messages for the right people. Apart from understanding the audiences, and this is also a great opportunity to kind of highlight that we're not only just not measuring the what and the visitation, but a lot of those audience data are being collated and they also are being analyzed over time. So if you're rerunning that campaign again, this is also an opportunity to bring back a lot of this data into the future planning strategies to understand past campaign performance, build lookalike audiences, and also use the same audiences to conduct omni-channel targeting. So while you're running the campaign through the amazing transit formats, but every single person that's been exposed to the campaign are unified to a digital ID, which then we can retarget. At the same time, those audiences can also be further driven down to bottom of the funnel to be measured against sales uplift, which I'm going to pass to Justin to also walk everyone through the exciting products that MasterCard has launched with us as well.
All right. Thanks so much, Eric. Can everyone hear me? Oh, good.
Yep.
Great. Before I bring up my slides, I wanted to just say a quick hello to everyone. I'm here in Melbourne today. I'm visiting from Singapore. I am based in Singapore. And as a quick introduction, I have been at MasterCard for close to 2 years, and I lead our partnerships and ecosystems with global media agencies, independent agencies, publishers, media owners, as well as ad tech platforms in the region. And prior to MasterCard, I spent more than 14 years across the big tech platforms, such as Google, Meta, as well as TikTok. So very happy to be here. And with that, let me bring up my screen and we'll hopefully have a discussion. All right. I hope you can all see my screen. Just to build on Eric's topic around omni-channel media as well as media management, this is very top of mind for the industry and also for MasterCard. Let me give a very quick overview of who MasterCard is and the role that we've been playing using data as a key enabler. So I'm sure most of us know MasterCard as a payments and credit card company, but what not many people know is over the last 20 years, we have evolved into a technology and data leader globally. At the heart of it, our superpower lies in the depth and the breadth of data that we see across our MasterCard payments network. So globally, we see more than 200 billion purchase transaction data points every year. This is sourced from more than 3 billion cards that we have in circulation across more than 150 million merchants. And this data sits across a few hundred different industry categories. So compared to a lot of the walled gardens today, our differentiation and value proposition really lies in the depth and the breadth of the data that we see. What we then do is we aggregate and we anonymize all of this data to make it actionable for our key clients as well as our partners like you. Now, I'll spend a little bit of time on this slide here. For those of us who have been media trained, this will likely come across as the classic media planning flywheel, and it is. And what we have done is overlaid MasterCard's data solutions across each of the different cycles of the flywheel and where we can add value. So the first piece is with MasterCard data and insights, agencies and advertisers like you can leverage real-world market and consumer insights to aid smarter and more effective media planning. And what I mean by this is we have spending data across a few hundred industry categories. So, for example, if you want to understand when does men's apparel spending increase leading into Christmas and Black Friday sales, we can provide you with those insights, and that will help in terms of media planning. When should we start advertising? We have ability to understand online versus offline spending behavior, and that helps us in terms of how do we allocate budget between online and offline omni-channel media. We also have the ability to provide year-on-year forecast and growth to better understand how is my business performing against my peer set in the industry. And we can also go further down into merchant level analysis where we can look at share of wallet. So for example, if a QSR company has ran an omni-channel media campaign, pre and post campaign, are they seeing an actual increase in market share? So that's the first piece here, which is very effective in terms of helping uncover customer and market insights. Second, it's more around audience planning. So for example, we have products that can identify micro geographies and postcodes where there are top spenders or frequent spenders in a few hundred industry categories. So for example, where are all of the postcodes in Australia where there are top spenders in consumer electronics? And that then helps us to better targeted creatives and ad messaging to those individuals in order to drive better outcomes. And the last piece that I wanted to touch on very quickly was in terms of closing the loop. And this is where we have a product called Test and Learn for media measurement that can help measure incremental sales lift for a client or merchant off the back of an omni-channel media campaign and what would be associated business outcomes and drivers. So Lumos is our very valued partner along this whole journey. Today, they are a partner for Advertising Insights, which is our audience targeting solution, and also our Test and Learn for media solution. And with that, I would go ahead to jump. And maybe the last point to touch on is, with all of this data, we're also seeing an increase in usage in agentic AI models. As you understand, data and the quality and the depth of data becomes critical in a world of AI, because as the saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. And so you can imagine a lot of our data points here can help to democratize market research, audience planning for media agencies, as well as brands in this new world of AI that we are in today. So very quickly, I wanted to jump into Test and Learn. One very interesting fun fact here is, many of you might not know, but MasterCard owns the registered trademark to Test and Learn. I always like to say this. This is a platform that we acquired back in 2015. It was then called Applied Predictive Technologies. It is, at its heart, a business experimentation platform. So, for example, if a QSR restaurant today is looking to launch a new product into the market, and if they want to understand if that's going to cannibalize existing revenue or drive incremental revenue, they can actually use this Test and Learn platform to measure and do experiments. An increasing use case that we have seen in the last 3 years is in the area of media measurement, and this is what I'm going to be talking about today. So now, this slide is something that probably resonates with all of you. It talks about the difficulty and the challenges in today's world of measuring impact. For example, I learned from Eric today that on average, we are all exposed to more than 20 different media channels in the world. So it's a highly fragmented media space. As a result, measuring impact is difficult. There's also a very high level of wastage in our media dollars, like which part of that is really driving impact, which part of it is really not making any impact at all. And obviously, especially here in Australia, privacy is top of mind. So with MasterCard Test and Learn for media measurement, this is a solution that leverages our in-house proprietary technology, which is our Test and Learn platform. And it also leverages our in-house proprietary MasterCard purchase data. So in this solution, we actually do not need any exchange of data between an end client or merchant. With MasterCard, we would leverage all of our first-party spend data, which makes this also extremely privacy safe and privacy compliant. This, at the heart of it, is how we build the Test and Learn for media measurement. It leverages test versus control. Right. So for example, the blue line here would be the test group. So this could include all of the postcodes or lat-long coordinates where media is being exposed to a population. So take, for example, a QSR. Right. We will then look for MasterCard holders in these postcodes or lat-long coordinates that are spending on the QSR brand or the merchant. And we then create the test group here. With the control group, we would then look for very similarly sized postcodes, lat-long coordinates in behavior and economic behavior to those test group postcodes, but no media is exposed in the control group in yellow here. So the beauty of the Test and Learn platform is it is able to reduce and minimize a lot of the bias and noise in the data set, such that both test and control lines perform very closely prior to a media event. So in this case, a media campaign is launched, and that's where we start to see actual spend starting to increase. We then measure the incremental lift that is based off the actual spend versus what would have been an expected baseline performance that we have modeled out for the QSR brand. So this is really measuring causal incremental impact. It is not a before and after, it is not an A/B test. This is how we approach incremental measurement. And there are two methods that we that we use with this. The first is what we call the gold standard, which is geo-level holdout. It's exactly the methodology that I just explained, which is looking at geo-level test versus control holdouts to measure lift. There are situations in which we are unable to hold out geographies. So for example, if it is a nationwide TV and radio campaign, we just cannot hold out New South Wales versus Victoria, or in countries like Singapore, where I come from, where it's such a small country, I cannot afford to hold out the south versus the east of Singapore. The second methodology will be what we call a nationwide campaign. What we do is we use correlated market spending data sets, for example, in QSR category. We also look at the merchant spend over a period of time. And then we use machine learning to model out, as you can see in the yellow line here, what would have been an expected spending trend and behavior over a period of time. So this creates a synthetic benchmark and a baseline of spend. A media event happens, and that's where we start to see actual spend increase. And this is how we measure the incremental lift between actual spend versus what would have been a business as usual expected behavior of spending within the client. So these are just some examples of the output, and right after this, I'll jump into an actual case study. So with Test and Learn for media measurement, we report back on incremental sales, incremental transaction count, as well as incremental average ticket size. We also have the ability to look into market share movement, like in this case, pre and post campaign, did a client actually see an increase in market share? And lastly, we even go further into online versus offline breakdowns, as well as customer segment breakdown. So this is just an overview and schematic of how the actual output could look like. But let me go right into an actual case. So this was a campaign that ran for one of the largest QSR brands in this region. We don't have naming rights, so we had to keep this as an anonymized case study. They were going to launch a new product into the market, and they were leveraging omni-channel media, in this case, TV, radio, digital, and social media campaigns to drive purchase. And they were very keen to understand what was the incremental sales impact driven by both the product launch as well as the omni-channel media campaign. So this particular project leveraged the nationwide campaign that I mentioned, in which we were able to build a correlated baseline and benchmark in yellow, and then we measure the actual spend. Now, this was a very interesting case study because, as you can immediately see on this slide here, the overall sales lift for the brand was actually flat or even slightly borderline negative. In many instances, when we think about sales lift, we want everything to be positive. Right? Like if anything is negative, the client's going to react. They would point the finger at the media plan. They would say that it didn't work. But very interestingly, because of our ability at MasterCard to measure not just the business outcome, which is sales lift, we also look very deeply into the business drivers. And this was when we looked into the overall business drivers, it added a lot of value to the client, not just from a media perspective, but also from a product and pricing perspective. And I'll go through a little bit more about what this means later on. And let's just jump right into here. As you can see, the two lines here in orange and black. The black is the actual spend. The orange would have been the model expected spend over a period of time. And as you can see here, the R-squared correlation value is very high, at least 0.92, which means to say test versus control is working. The media campaign then started here. Radio went first, followed by digital as well as TV. And as you can see in the first week, the actual spend actually was above predicted spend. So there was a small incremental lift, about 4.1% in the first week, but performance did not sustain for the rest of the 3 weeks of this 4-week campaign. As you can see, the black line, which is the actual spend, did not keep up with expected performance. So there was an initial reaction from our team, which is, okay, what really happened from here? And I think as we looked further into the numbers, it started to show up very clearly some of the drivers. This is just looking at overall transaction count lift, and as expected, transaction count lift, which is overall number of purchases, again, over the period of time, did not keep up with the expected spend, which is why we saw a negative volume of transaction lift. Now, a very interesting reason why, when we dove deeper into this, was we have the ability to analyze average ticket size. And in this case, we looked at not just the average ticket size of this QSR client, but we looked at the overall QSR category. Very interestingly, during this period of time, they were the only QSR in the market to increase the average price point of the menu item above $10. And as you can see here, every other QSR category client or merchant either maintained price or reduced price. Because they raised price, there was an immediate backlash from the consumers. And as a result, when we look at market share analysis, this particular client lost about 1.4% of market share in terms of share of eating places, volume of transactions over that period of time. We then looked deeper into the consumer segments. And this was where it became even more interesting because we looked at these three segments here, which is frequent diners, means to say people who dine at least, who spend on at least 20 transactions on a MasterCard at eating places. We looked at tech-savvy consumers, and we also looked at grocery shoppers. And what became quite evident was they faced the biggest backlash in terms of decline in spend and transactions from people who were seen as frequent diners. And within the frequent diner segment, they actually saw the biggest decline in people and users who are loyalists to this brand. Means to say people who spend on average a very high share of wallet of their QSR spending with this particular brand. And so there was a clear backlash from people who were frequent diners and most importantly, people who are loyal to this brand. But very interestingly, we saw a very strong positive uplift from people who were heavy grocery spenders. And the reason why was the particular menu item that they launched into the market was actually a family sharing platter. And so these were actually moms and dads who were bringing their families out on the weekends during dinner time to spend and splurge on the family. So this was a very interesting insight, which informed on new audience segments that they would be able to target into the future. Right? So all in, at the end of it, this became not just a media performance discussion, it became a pricing, promotion, product discussion that they took up internally within their team on future learnings. And in fact, we are now running a second campaign for this QSR restaurant in the market as we speak. I think that just underlines the impact and I think the insight and the value of the insights that we receive from MasterCard Test and Learn. So that's pretty much all that I have to share on this. But I'll take the pause here and pass it back to Eric and Kirili to see if we are open to any questions. But I will stop sharing my screen now and just pass the time back. Thanks,
Thank you, Justin. Really appreciate that. Yeah, very in-depth. And Eric, would you like to talk a little bit more about the Transit IQ platform that, you know, we've built in partnership with you and how you sort of see this MasterCard data informing our clients and agency partners?
100%, yeah. And it kind of, as Justin demonstrated, the power of the Master.
Looks like we lost Eric.
I think he has frozen. Hopefully he comes back. There we go. You're back.
Can you hear me okay? Am I back? Sorry, just double checking. Okay, cool. Yeah, so as Justin mentioned, the strength of the MasterCard data and have a really deep understanding of the transaction behaviors of those audiences. As part of the Transit IQ, new updates in the coming weeks is around incorporating a lot of those insights and understanding of the spend behavior data to then inform the best market that's going to be best fit to launch some of the campaigns for the different verticals. So working very closely with the team at Go Transit and being part of the Transit IQ launch. This also means that if you do have a brief that very specific and very targeted to a certain demographic or spender profile, this is now all going to be made available from a planning perspective. And also from the opportunity perspective that we're also getting access to the likes of Test and Learn to help demonstrate that close the loop conversation that is able to also be enabled at the end of the campaign and complement that with the likes of footfall uplift to demonstrate the proxy business impact, understanding campaign that's driving store traffic and also trying to have a better understanding of the type of audiences that we are driving to store. So effectively, that whole end-to-end value chain of having a really precise and very targeted approach in doing planning, all the way down to understanding performance in flight, and all the way to the end of that process, which is closing the loop, understanding the uplift in sales and market share, is now all made available through Transit IQ offering. So this is definitely a very exciting time for the industry and also for the broader partners that's working closely with Go Transit and the team. I think this is an amazing opportunity for us to start looking at any of the opportunity bricks that you have on your desk that can be run through this new process.
Brilliant. Thanks again, Eric. Back to you, Beck and Nikki, unless there's any questions from the team.
Generally, there might not be questions, but more than likely, if there is anything to come out, please reach out to Nikki or the Go Transit team directly, and either we can put you in contact or you can speak to them. Thank you so much, Curly, Eric, Justin, and Bernard for joining us today. Everyone have a great day, and thanks for being part of today's Insights Innovation webinar.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.